Okay, so I'm recording this just to sort of document things for myself, and if this helps anyone else along the way, that's awesome. Today let me open up this project. So I'm working in this Unreal 4 virtual production template by a user of Epic forum user named Greg Corson. He did a really nice job of exploring a lot of the virtual production tools in Unreal and coming up with a great template tutorial sort of project that people could work off of. I am using it primarily because it has a lot of assets that like materials and things that will be useful. I haven't actually looked into his main project. I just sort of opened it and I created a new map that contains this is just it's called sci-fi hallway in the Unreal Engine. I just wanted an environment to work in. What I've done here, so after I created a new map and everything, I added this into the project, and then I started working on the actual virtual production side of things, starting with getting a camera tracking going. Close that for now. So started with, and this is based on a tutorial I saw from a gentleman on YouTube, Richard Franson. There's the link. This is the tutorial. This was really great, and it helped me figure out a lot of just the basics for getting this blueprint going. So if I pop open this blueprint, the core of it is the tracker here, and then this position, which ultimately leads to location, and another leading to rotation. I have these sort of elements in the middle, and it's easier to show than to tell. If I were to circumvent this rotators feature, this window too small. Once I go to play this, whoa. Oh, sorry. My Vive controller probably turned off. Okay, Vive controller should be turned back on. Okay. So when I go to play the game simulation, basically take things into the real-time world, you can see that my virtual camera pivots 90 degrees from where I had it facing. Not really sure why. I think it might have something to do with room setup in Steam VR. But Richard's tutorial did sort of mention that can happen with the Vive trackers especially, so he offered this combined rotators as a solution, adding a 90 degree value to the rotation. Works like a charm, so that's cool. The other side of this is the location. If I had to make adjustments here as well, which Richard's tutorial did not mention, but I'm having this issue where if I go straight to this relative location, when I hit play, for some reason the area in which I the area in which I set my virtual camera and its tracker just doesn't stay there, and it pops up. It just moves when I hit play, so couldn't really figure out what the issue was, but my way to work around it, and this was just a lot of poking around in the blueprint, I found these transform location, offset location, transform location and then offset transform blueprint components. I really don't know what you call these. I should learn more about that. But I found these and I was able to discern and then set these values back to 0. So there's that jump. I was able to discern that these at least got the position to move, to offset. Ultimately, how I found these numbers was just by playing around, but what I did notice was that when I took my Vive controller and I laid it on the ground and then did this pressing play of the simulation, even before I added in those transforms, the camera wasn't like all the way up here. It was like up here somewhere. Or it might have even been like around here still. So I think it had something to do with just maybe the room setup and where it thinks the ground is. But to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I just poked around with these until, so you can see, it's just fairly close to where I left the camera. It's not exact, but it was close enough. And then that these three elements here, particularly these two, are something I added in, but this essentially is the blueprint for just going from track device, set location, track device, set rotation. Obviously the event tick tells it to start, and then this is just saying like do this and then this. That's that. And I have switched the location and rotation start, like event orders around. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference. So that's cool. Once you do that, and that's the blueprint of this tracker here. You parent that to a live camera, Cinecamera actor, and my camera actor is, I have the sensor size information of my camera thrown in here, and then it's the focal length of my lens. And I also, once I find a focus distance, which I can check. Once I find a focus distance on my camera, I will set that to the focus distance of the virtual camera as well. So that's pretty much. And if I go and play here, go over to my camera. I left the static mesh of the tracker on so that I can see a representation of the virtual camera. And yeah, it's pretty smooth and it works pretty well. So the next part of what I have been trying to figure out today was doing a live chroma key composite. So the next aspect of that is this Composure plugin in Unreal. This also, I sort of used both Richard and Andy Blondin's tutorials on this. Andy, I believe, works for Epic Games. Richard's tutorial helped me get the basics. Andy's tutorial got me a little more detail, and I'll sort of go over that in a second. But so the Composure plugin, I have all of this running, and that's another part of this project. I had all those plugins already running. Compositing. So in here, this is where you can create new comps, and this is a comp similar to like a comp in After Effects. So that was familiar and helped a lot. You can already see that like I'm comping in my camera into the environment, but I'll sort of work backwards from that. To create a comp, and then inside that comp, you create new layers. Let me show you that. Show myself that again. It's add new layer element. It'll ask, you can do a media plate, this is for video, or CG. This is a portion of the CG scene. Pretty straightforward. So doing the media plate, once it's created, you texture. When you create a media bundle, media profile, you create a profile first and then a media bundle, and all of that is just, you right click and then all of that is in here. Unreal, Epic has a really great tutorial on like using the Blackmagic and Aja media bundles. It's pretty simple, so I'm going to skip over that. And when you create all of that, it'll give you, inside the assets, it'll give you a texture, and that's the texture you'll want to use here. No. No? Okay. Weird. So there's a texture, and you can see my thing popped up. It's already keyed. This is also these three, this chroma keying, despill, erode, essentially a blur, are already built into the Composure media plate. Under here, you have your color picker. I could reset this, but I do like this key. Now I'll reset it. So I'm going to start from the beginning here again. You have your keyer. You pick a color. There we go. I think a lot of the Unreal is a little tricky, and like a lot of the parameters and things will still be set even if you like reset other stuff. So I do like keeping this window open. It gives you a live view of what goes on. The first thing is probably doing this vignette out. This kind of works like any other keyer. You'll have different things to use. That's cool for now. Now we can go into the despill and select. Great. Yes. And I just want to get that green edge. I've noticed that does a really good job of helping clean up color a little bit. The hue range and things you mostly don't need to change. You kind of make little adjustments. Those sort of edges you'll get with the erode feature, which is essentially a little bit of a blur. Reset those. Yeah, as you can see, even though I hit the reset button up there, it doesn't do it across the whole thing. So that kind of gets those blurs down a little bit. It's not the most amazing key, but it's pretty solid. That's doing a simple key there, and then the last thing I had, I did a custom material pass with this. Let me reset it. So custom material pass material. If you search grade, it has color grade. This is something Andy Blondin showed as a way of grading your input post key if you need to make any adjustments. He showed another way that seemed a little more intricate, but also is new to 4.25, and I'm using 4.24. I don't feel I needed to do a ton of grading on this just yet. It's mostly experimental, so that's good for now. There's a camera in keyed. Going back to the comp, you would add in your background plate. Mine's already here, and when you do that under the comp, you need to give it a camera actor. Sorry, that was my controller turning off again, I'm sure. I'll probably pop right back into its spot. You give it a background actor, and in this case I choose the live camera, which is my tracked camera, and then that is what becomes the background. The way this comp works, and this is something deeper, this was in Andy's tutorial, jeez, I'm clicking so many things, is you have this single transform pass here, and there's a material, if I come back out to here, this comp material, funky looking thing. This is the one that came with this project, Greg Corson's work. See if I throw it in, I just get this sort of ugly texture, and I have to come in and say, this camera plate is my video plate, this is my background element. Oh, I'm sorry. He has these. They're stacked opposites. There's my background element. There's my camera plate. No. I'm not sure why. Oh, perhaps because I don't have a foreground element, it needs to be my camera plate. That makes sense. So his is a little more complicated. As you saw when I went into that blueprint, Andy Blunden talks about actually making this material, this comp material for Composure. It's essentially like, your RGB alpha goes here, which is under this one, which is under that one, which goes here, which is under that one, composition. And the reason, when I dropped these in, I had to assign my layer names to the element names. I made one myself, and that allowed me, when I dropped that in, because my layer names are the same as my element names, it just auto-populates. And because I only have a plate and a background, it's a lot simpler. I will experiment with foreground stuff, but for now I just wanted to get really just a person into Unreal. So that's that. That's getting the comp going. And now I let that simulation run a lot. But if I restart the simulation here, you see my virtual camera, my composition. And as I pan, and now, this is definitely, I believe, a symptom of using Vive. I cannot move very quickly, or my tracking gets lost. Gen locking the camera should perhaps help with that. I also wonder if using more trackers and things would help. Not more trackers, but more base stations. I know I'm using an original Vive. I know that Matt Workman and a lot of other people use Vive Pros, which allows you to use like 4 or more maybe base stations, and probably gives you a lot better tracking that way. But this is it. This was really just the sort of proof of concept that I was trying to get to. One thing, I threw this Blackmagic bundle in. It's down below here. It has to be in here for the camera plate to work. It's just a weird thing. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter or need to get seen. But that's it. The other thing I found was that outputting the comp did not work through media capture, and I can show you that. You do have to, you can see here, this is the output pass is a media capture. You do have to go to media capture and create one. And that's why I have this SDI output, it's a Blackmagic output. You do have to create one in media capture, but just the camera itself, capture, it gives me the capture, it gives me that properly, and that is also tracked. I can tilt that back and forth, and that back and forth. That is tracked. However, once I try to do an output of the composite itself, it gives me this viewport that I don't really know what this is showing me. It seems like it is of the media plane. This seems kind of like where I put the Blackmagic media bundle inside of the project, but I'm not sure. My workaround for doing an SDI out then, though, of the comp is under the comp asset itself. It has outputs, and then once you've just made that media capture, you can then choose it, open up, enable, and then SDI output, and that seems to work just as well. So I like to turn this tone mapping off. Well, I don't know. it's sort of a balance. The tone map seems to render the game stuff a lot better, but not the video. Um, I think that the solution is probably to keep the tone mapping on and then work inside the color grader of the camera plate. But that's something I hope to explore more. Yeah, this is pretty much it. I'll pop a squat in camera just to give a reference. That shadow is on the green screen itself and just a poor key. It is sort of an interesting way to get a shadow going in the engine. That's something I want to look into as well, but I feel like I need to sort of master just the general comping of things first. So overall, I feel a lot more comfortable doing the basics of tracking a camera and having a virtual camera, creating a virtual camera. I feel a lot more comfortable with Composure. I have questions on like tracker positioning and whether or not there's a way to sort of give the scene like a default position for the camera start, or just how you sort of make the world in Unreal, the map, sort of relative to the scale of your VR room, I guess. And then I definitely would like to play more with doing genlock in the future if I can, and probably throwing in foreground elements into compositions as well. Virtual foreground elements, maybe something for someone to interact with, and then there is a lot more. There's others going a lot deeper into this. I've seen some tutorials on creating like finding ways to sort of like inverse your video input and use that data to create like a shadow of a human that will affect the Unreal environment, but that I feel like I'm a few steps away from that. Yeah, that's it for now. Alright, so this is a quick proof of concept I did my roommate. Just tracking him, tracking a little bit of movement against a key, and this isn't super perfect. Technically, there's really poor key on the left-hand side of frame. This take was a little more graded. And then I think in a little bit I'd go handheld, and the camera starts like merging with the walls of the map and stuff. Really just early, but I just wanted some sort of proof of concept for keying in Unreal and doing the real-time compositing. Yeah, right here, I take the camera off sticks and then immediately step outside of the bounds of the map. So.